Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Fleming, and I would like to talk to everyone today about social responsibilities. Social responsibilities that we can all exercise while we are experiencing what we're experiencing today, specifically pertaining to the coronavirus. So while the scientists and doctors and things, or scientists are attempting to find a cure, there's some things that we can also do as far as exercising social responsibility mentally. So I'd like to discuss that a little bit. Right now, there has been a preponderance of fear and fear mongering. Now, while I completely understand that this is something that we have really never faced in modern times before, as well as the fact that over the past month, all of our world has changed drastically. I mean, it's a completely new world now, just in a matter of about 3 weeks to a month. So that would, of course, entail a certain amount of fear as far as, people feeling that their world has completely shifted and changed. Many people are out of work and things like that. So we're all experiencing a certain amount of fear right now. However, it is important for us to exercise intentional selective awareness right now. And so that is intentionally selecting what you choose to put into your consciousness, into your mind, what you allow your thoughts to dwell on. It is extremely important for us to be responsible, first of all, to ourselves, and in being responsible to ourselves as far as safeguarding the information that is going into our consciousness, as well as our friends and our neighbors and our loved ones and spouses and family, and associates and acquaintances. We're all in this together. And so being all in this together, we're all interdependent on one another, to see a more positive aspect of these things. And that doesn't mean to bury our head in the sands or to somehow deny what is actually happening in the physical world. But that is just basically attesting to that there is something still important that we can do while the scientists, while the doctors are researching this thing, or while other organizations are doing what they can to limit the spread of infection and come about with a cure. There's things that we can do as well as citizens to transform this experience into a more loving one. So in the exercising of intentional selective awareness, it is important that unless you are an employee or a scientist in the CDC or in some sort of serving in some sort of capacity of attempting to solve the challenges of this virus scientifically, unless you are one of those bodies, it is important not to dwell on the negative aspects or negative implications or fearful aspects of what we're experiencing, dwelling and sending people fearful videos, showing other people that are in fear, or showing people broadcasting their interpretation of events. Yes. This situation is scary for many of us, but that doesn't mean that we need to dwell our thoughts on it. Again, unless you are part of the CDC or a scientist or some other governing body, if there is no productive aspect of what you are doing, then why do it? Why do it? To share the fear? Is that really what our society needs right now? I mean, could we use a whole lot more fear and to make us even more frightened? Is that what we need? So if you are, now I have also noticed on the other side that there are a number of people on Facebook. I'm not really big in social media as far as having a whole bunch of, Instagrams and things like that. But I do have a Facebook, and I have noticed that there are a lot of people that are, in fact, doing just what I'm describing. They're sharing positive implications and things that we have to be thankful for the coronavirus. And so this is not living in denial. This is choosing to focus your awareness on something positive about this, to create a feeling of gratitude, to create the energy of gratitude. See, in order to truly be transformed and evolve and move past this as a society, we need a little bit more of gratitude around here. So again, the exercising of intentional awareness is extremely important. So how do we do that? So let's just get right to it, because we have a Course in Miracles study group about to start. How do we do that? Well, number one, control the information. Control the information. So however it is that you control the information, anytime you turn on the radio or TV or go on the internet, the information is the coronavirus, and and how many people died, and all sorts of other frightening things. So I invite you to limit that. I invite you to limit that information. It's, the news is important. The news is very important, but it's important to understand that the news is also a business. And any business is going to maximize their profit margin. So the news is no different. I mean, the news shares information, but they're going to share the scariest, most frightening information that they can share. And that's just their job. That's their job, because it's been scientifically proven that when you focus on scary things, you get more of an audience. And that's what they're in the business. They're in a business just like any other business. So it's important to keep that in mind and limit the amount of negative feed that you get into your consciousness, because as you continue to allow that negative information to enter your consciousness, you, even without even knowing it, you begin to become negative. Without even knowing it, you have that negativity in your consciousness. And as you share with people, you don't have to send messages to people. As you share and interact, and there is, on a subliminal level, there is an exchange of information, of fear, that is going from your mind to theirs in everything that you do, in every word that you speak. There is a certain amount of negative energy or negative thought energy that's emanating from your mind and is being kind of transferred over to theirs. And this is the truth. Do your research on it. And as a matter of fact, I encourage you to do your research on it. Don't take anything that someone tells you and take it to be just the law. Exercise your own understanding of things. Research it, look it up, research it. The thoughts that you allow to enter your consciousness will impact the world that you perceive and experience. That is a scientific fact. So with that in mind, we can turn that around. With that in mind, we can actually then focus on the positive implications of the coronavirus. So how do we do that? We reframe our thoughts. We reframe things. We reframe it. So how do we reframe it? Well, one basic understanding in the act of reframing any fear-based concept is to understand that God is good all the time. Now, I'm not here to discuss religion. If you wish to replace the word God with spirit or whatever it is that you believe, just understand that there is a power in the universe that is always moving us forward for good, that is always constantly uplifting humanity. So even things that look like they are so frightening, so fearful, so however it is that we're interpreting it, there's something else going on but not beneath the surface that is revolutionary, that is evolutionary, to be more accurate, evolutionary, that is evolving our consciousness and moving us towards a greater awareness, a greater understanding, a greater experience. in this time of isolation, quarantine, whatever label you want to put on it, we can do things that we have never been able to do before when we were busy going to work and, working 9 to 5s or whatever our shift was. And, we just had to pay bills and it was just like, go, 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 go. Now we all get a chance to just stop and reset. So this is a wonderful time to exercise some self-care. Self-care is basically a self-love act. Okay? You deserve it. Some self-care. You deserve it. Take care of yourself. Pamper yourself. Spend time with yourself. Spend valuable quality alone time with yourself. Get to know yourself. If you want to give yourself a manicure, give yourself a manicure. Self-care. Or do your feet. Get yourself a pedicure. Give yourself a pedicure. I'm referring specifically to some alone time, however. So pamper yourself. Think loving thoughts about yourself. Take care of yourself. You deserve it, and understand that you deserve it. Understand that you are important. Understand that you deserve every bit of self-care that you decide that you want to lavish on yourself. You are worth it. And just remember that and tell yourself that, because sometimes it's easy to forget. It is so easy to forget when we get caught up in things, get caught up in what's going on, get caught up in everything else except for us. Yeah, we can forget that we're valuable, that we're important, that it's important to take care of ourselves. So, in other words, learn to build a loving relationship with you. With you. So, another thing that we can be doing right now, which is in line with self-care, is personal self-development. Personal self-development. Again, you're worth it. You are so valuable. You are worth some personal self-development. So, some examples of personal self-development: learn to meditate. If before the coronavirus, you never had any time or anything like that, well, you know something, you probably have a lot more time now. So, use this time. Use this time as opposed to being on social media and the news and things like that. Unplug for a little bit and meditate. So if you only had 5 minutes to meditate, before the coronavirus, hey, you know something? You got a lot of time now. So use that time for you. You're worth it. Spend that time with you. Spend that time with spirit, with God that is within you. And the way to do that is in the silence. Or learn another language. Hey, learn another language. You ever wanted to learn Portuguese, or you ever want to learn Chinese, or, if you don't speak Spanish and you always want to learn Spanish, well, something, there's a lot of people I live in Houston. So there's a lot of people in Houston that speak Spanish, and Spanish is becoming a predominant language now. So this is a great time to learn it. I mean, while we have all of this extra time on ourselves, on our hands, learn some Spanish. So these are some things that you can do. Read a book. Take some time to read a book. Read a book on personal self-development. So there are so many different things that we could be actually doing with this extra time that we have while we're quarantined, while we are in quote unquote isolation. Things that we can be doing that can help evolve our consciousness. Things that can allow us to move forward into new understandings and insights and realizations of oneness, of spirit, of truth. With all of this that I have said, it is important to focus our awareness on the positive aspects of what we're experiencing so that we can create and foster and nourish a sense of gratitude. And as we create and foster and nourish that sense of gratitude, you will begin to see a world that is completely different from the world that you are experiencing or may be experiencing right now. So these are guidelines on being more completely socially responsible, not just physically socially responsible, but mentally socially responsible, as far as being wholly socially responsible, wholly socially responsible. And with that responsibility, whenever this thing is over, because remember, this too will pass. Whenever this thing is over and when quarantine is lifted, you will emerge from this experience a more enhanced you, a more evolved you, a more loving you, a transformed you. Again, my name is Stephen Fleming. I want to thank you for listening to this message and enjoy A Course in Miracles. Thank you. Mom, go ahead, and I'll be taking my break anyway.
We can go to mom. We can go to mom.
No. It's your turn.
Nah, you get to do it.
It's your turn.
Okay.
So,
it's my turn to sit and let somebody meditate.
All right. So let's all get ready. So Deb, go ahead and lead us.
Let's just take a deep breath and release. Exhale. Let go of anything that we might be holding within our spirit tonight. Anything within our mind that is weighing us down, we now release in order to clear the space for this spiritual food we are about to feed upon to nurture and fill our spirit. And we connect in this moment deeply to the indwelling power that is within us, the omnipotent, powerful one that we are all connected to at all times. It is within this space that we draw upon the knowledge and the wisdom that is always present, here to guide, direct us, deeply connected to divine will and power. And within each and every one in this room tonight is the ability to embrace the wonderful food that we're about to partake of, pull it deeply within our soul, knowing that as we embrace this, that we will take this with us everywhere that we go and share that beautiful light that is God. We open our hearts with expansive gratitude and thanks that we are able to meet together, to ground ourselves in these truths, to sustain ourselves during times of challenge and change. We know that this is a very important time for many as we take these truths, these amazing new thoughts everywhere that we go to support and help others as they step in to the fullness of who they are. And we take a moment to hold this beautiful opportunity. Breathe it deeply in gratitude in the silence as we say within, thank you. We are grateful for the inspiration behind this course. We are grateful for its ability to open us up fully to the Son, the Father, to embrace at one-ment, to embrace love, and to embrace the miracle that we all are. And so we open ourselves this evening to this meeting in gratitude. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so let us begin our opening prayer to begin this meeting. And if everyone wouldn't mind repeating after me, and this is a prayer from A Course in Miracles. I am here only to be truly helpful.
I am
Here only to be truly helpful.
I am here to represent Him who sent me.
I am here to represent God who sent me.
I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do.
I don't have to worry about what to say or what to do.
For He who sent me will direct me.
For He who sent me will
direct me.
I am content to be wherever He wishes.
I am content to be wherever God wishes.
Knowing He goes there with me.
Knowing God goes there with me.
I will be healed.
I will be healed.
I let Him teach me to heal.
As I let God teach me to heal.
And so it is.
So it is.
Amen. And as I know it about A women, as she likes to say. So,
yes.
Amen. Okay. All right. Moj, hey, how's it going? We got
Moj! Oh my God, Moj is back.
Oh my goodness. Welcome back, sister.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, there you are. In the flesh.
Oh, thank you.
So Moj, if you want to briefly just, kind of share, because there's a lot of new people. So if you just kind of share where you've been.
Please share, Moj.
Thank you. I don't know what you guys would like to know, but
most of the people don't know anything, so tell it all.
So I happened to chose 3 weeks before the disembarkment to go with my mom on the Princess Cruise because something told me that my mom shouldn't go by herself. And so just about 3 weeks before it, I decided, after one of my morning meditations, I called her up. I said, Mom, I'm going to go with you. And we just got the representative on the line. We conference called her in right there and then. And I added myself. And then I came and told my family, oh, by the way, I'm going with Mom. The cruise was to be about 15 days. We ended up staying on the boat about 20 days into also self-isolation. And it was interesting. It was really interesting times. And, I kept with my practices. I have a group which is similar to this group. They don't do the Course in Miracle in that call, but we have same kind of a conversations, my 5 a.m. every day. So I still met up with those people. I figured out how to use Skype, so I can still make phone calls via internet and be on that group. And it felt like during my meditations, I felt like I'm holding up the ship. And one of my friends from that call said that, God placed the lighthouse on the boat this time, which really felt like that I just needed to be there. And I want to make sure that it doesn't come across but what it is it to me, it's a miracle, because we were in a closed space for 20 days, circulation, air circulation, the activities before we know, there are like so many close encounters, every program, every show, every whatever it's going on. There was a lot of interaction between the 20 some hundred passengers and 1100, 1200 staff. And yet from the federal quarantine that we got to go into afterwards, which was about 490 of us in this one location in San Diego, out of all the other bases, our base chose to get tested the most. So we had 90% of people tested. And even with 90% of more than 90% of people being tested, we had less than 10% positive and 4 individuals in the hospital. And to me, that is a miracle, because for being in such a place that we knew that this virus was active. There were 19 of the staff, which is big, and one couple of them were like waiters and waitresses, and then the average age on a cruise, I don't know if you guys know, the average age is really high. So it's all the pool that say people are susceptible to this virus, even though we know that there are younger people who are also getting affected, but by percentage. So there was everything against that space as far as number of people being affected and also, but yet as far as I know, as of now, there have been 2 people who passed away, and out of 3,500, 2, I think is just it's a miracle. I mean, I can't say anything else. So I wanted to kind of mention that. And at the same time, there's not much you can Google about this. So I know the 2 numbers just because I made a lot of friends on that boat. So I knew people in other bases, and we kept in contact. And being there, it felt like, I basically felt that's where I'm supposed to be, even though I missed my family so horribly, and I wanted to be in, I'm from Iran, so we celebrate first day of spring as our New Year. So I missed New Year being there, but yet my family pulled a miracle and got me the stuff that I need to celebrate, to set up that table, and which are things that are not easy to find, but my family pulled that, and we celebrated. And we were on a marine base in San Diego, Miramar Marine Base, and on the 13th day before New Year, we have a celebration that we make little bonfires and we jump over it. And we literally sing this poem that we say, I give you my yellowness and I take your redness to the fire. So it goes back to Zoroastrian times when they worshipped sun and fire. So basically what the prayer says is, I give you my illness, which is my yellowness, and I take your redness, which is your vibraciousness and your health. So I literally set up little bonfire in the back in an aluminum foil pan, and my mom and I did it. And my mom was like, we're going to get caught. We're going to get in trouble. We are in a marine, U.S. Marine base. And of course we got caught, and three of the soldiers came, but I explained to them what we were doing, and they were very intrigued. And so we still got to celebrate and do what we do. And but it was interesting time, because the morale was low. Everybody was worried. And I feel like I was able to put some smiles on some faces. I taught meditation almost every day toward the end of it, from 9 to 9:30, and a lot of people participated. I belong to Unity of Palo Alto, so we use that Zoom. So not only people from Unity joined, but people from different bases also joined. And we did meditation from 9 to 9:30, and in the mornings, Pacific time. So and we spent 2 weeks on the base, and it was interesting. You know, there were a lot of things that didn't go right, but it was okay. It was okay. Out of that, you know, I appreciated the time that I got to spend with my mom. We had two one bedrooms right across the hall from each other, so we spent a lot of time together, a lot of doing nothing. My friends send me a lot of goodies, because I couldn't get food for the first 3 days. I'm a pescatarian. So basically vegetarian who eats seafood, and there was no food for me. So my friends felt so bad. I was receiving packages. It was like crazy. I'm like, guys, stop. I actually had to get a couple extra luggage to bring things back. So I received a lot of love from my friends. A good friend of mine sent me a puzzle, and she told me that, and I said, don't send me an easy one. And she sent me one that's horribly hard. And I actually brought it home as much as I could in a good shape, so I can continue doing it. And lo and behold, it's a picture of a universe. So as my kids, my younger one started school on Monday, and my older one works from home, and they're busy on the phone, I tell them, you guys are busy, and I'm putting universe back together. So we have that going on in my house. So if you guys have any questions, I'm more than willing. There were a few things that weren't going so well. There were times that I felt that my mom and I are being singled out, and because of our last name, and but I actually had to talk with a couple people from they were from I think that they call human and whatever. They're basically in charge of HHC. They were basically in charge of the whole operation as far as the quarantine and all that. And couple federal agents. I was dealing with like 5-6 really big guys trying to tell us to do certain things that I didn't think that it was good. It was right for us to do. They wanted to basically ship us to Georgia for quarantine, and I told them I'm not going to go to Georgia. You know, nothing against Georgia, but I'm not going to go 5 hours across U.S. to go get quarantined somewhere else. And I kind of felt that it was because of our last name, because there was a lot of political stuff as they were pulling people off the boat. And being from a country of controversy, I kind of have somewhat of an antenna up for that. But at the same time, my dad was an admiral of Navy back home, so I'm very good with speaking with authorities with respect and not getting intimidated. So that also helped my mom and I to be rerouted to San Diego versus out of state. So, you know, some of that also went on, which wasn't very pretty, but so be it. I mean, nothing that, you know, it's just part of life at times. But I felt throughout the whole thing, I knew I was where I'm supposed to be throughout the whole thing. And every time, you know, every day I was like, you know, I'm so glad I'm here with my mom. And even on the first day when they asked us to self-quarantine or self-isolate on the boat, my mom broke down a few times the first couple of days, and I sat there and I just talked to her, and I asked her why, what's the problem, and why is she sad, and we got to talk about things, and I basically told my mom, I said, Mom, I feel like, this is a good time for me to go. Like literally, I said, I've sent Dad to heaven 4 months ago. My kids are grown and they're self-sufficient. My husband is a workaholic, so he would still keep working, and I'm with my mom, so I'm good to go. This is a good break point. If I need to go, I can go, and if that's what has to happen, that's so be it. Because at some point, especially in the self-isolation at the boat, it was because we knew we were in this enclosed space, and from what we know as far as how this virus is easily transferred from one to another. So it's I'm very thankful for this practice. I'm very thankful with how I feel like I was prepared for that, and I'm so thankful for this space and for all my other camaraderies in partners in crimes to be mentally and spiritually in such a space that we could just go through it with grace.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing, Moj.
Sure.
And,
Yeah, thank you so much.
you were in our prayers for those several weeks that you weren't here, and we would not while we were doing Course in Miracles, but I would talk to Mom and Claudia and things like that, and how's Moj, and so we're just happy to see you.
Thank you so much. It's I felt the support so much. I have a friend that we're like meditation friends, and her father also just passed away a couple 3 days ago, and she even was telling me throughout this time that this was going on, that I went to visit my dad, and my dad was asking about you, how's your friend on the ship? So, and he was sending his love and his prayer, and I felt every one of them. So it felt like the support is there and we're held. So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So Moj, how long have you been at Unity of Palo Alto? How long have you been at Unity of Palo Alto?
So with Unity of Palo Alto, we started some time back, maybe 10 years ago or more. And
because I lived out in California and I spoke there a couple of times, so I was just
all right,
so then we had a break, and then we are back like for a good 2-3 years now.
Okay, Stephen, we'll behave.
Actually, I mean, we're good. I'm looking just to see how long the rest of the Gifts of Fatherhood is. So let's start on paragraph 7. We were starting on paragraph 8, but let's kind of get a running start to paragraph 7. Deb, you said Deb next? Deb, would you mind, if you have your book, would you mind, please?
Yeah. Okay, paragraph 7 says, could any part of God be without his love? And could any part of his love be contained? God is your heritage because his one gift is himself. How can you give except like him if you would know his gift to you? Give then without limit and without end to learn how much he has given you. Your ability to accept him depends on your willingness to give as he gives. Your fatherhood and your Father are one. God wills to create, and your will is his. It follows then that you will create since your will follows from him. And being an extension of his will, yours must be the same.
All right. So this is where we left off. And so, but this is where we're going to pick up just to get a running start. Does anyone have any interpretations, any comments about that?
Well, that's just an extension of the statement in the Course that says God's and other things to God's will is my will. That's basically a whole bunch of words to come to. That's the God's will is my will. That's what that whole paragraph basically is saying.
Yeah. Thank you, Mom. Anybody else? Anything jump out to anybody? Anyone have any experiences related to that paragraph that they wouldn't mind sharing? No? All right. Well, let's continue on to where we're really starting off with paragraph 8. So who's next? Teska, would you mind reading paragraph 8?
Be happy to. Yet what you will, you do not know. This is not strange when you realize that to deny is to not know. God's will is that you are his son. By denying this, you deny your own will, and therefore do not know what it is. You must ask what God's will is in everything, because it is yours. You do not know what it is, but the Holy Spirit remembers it for you. Ask him, therefore, what God's will is for you, and he will tell you yours. It cannot be too often repeated that you do not know it. Whenever what the Holy Spirit tells you appears to be coercive, it is only because you have not recognized your will.
So Teska, do you have any, would you like to expound on that paragraph before we set it open for the whole group? What comes to you?
Yeah, when I'm in fear, I really love the idea that I don't know. Because maybe there's nothing to fear, but I don't know it. So that's what I like about this, is the not knowing part really helps comfort me in the fact that the Holy Spirit does know, and what he knows cannot scare me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Teska. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Anybody else? Anybody want to expound on Teska, or anybody have an additional interpretation from that comes to them, or a personal experience relating to that paragraph, or just anything?
I have something. I felt a little shy speaking up, being I'm new here, but I'll go ahead because you all have to forgive me anyway. I know the rules.
We're waiting. We appreciate it. Thank you. Listening.
Anyway, what I'm saying here, and right where we picked up in these couple paragraphs, it keeps referring to you and you referring to, it's addressing somebody that's called you. And it feels like right here, it's in that level where it's talking about you as you consider yourself separate from God. And that the Course kind of talks about that self-made self, that imaginary self that we kind of operate from until we don't someday. And I don't know, when we first started reading the last paragraph, my eyes just kind of flew over to the other page, the page prior, in paragraph 2, where it says, "To be alone is to be separated from infinity. But how can this be if infinity has no end?" And the Course being a non-dual path, there is, and no one can be beyond the limitless. In other words, like what we just read, it's addressing that. It's addressing us before we realize who we are, and that we are. There's nowhere, as the Course says, there's nowhere the Father ends and the Son begins. We as separate selves don't exist. We who we always thought ourselves don't, only God is, which we're all a part of. And this is kind of where I get lost for words, because I don't think words could really describe the unity that it's really trying to, the oneness that it's trying to drive at. And I don't know. That was my 2 cents. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill. And even at a loss for words, you definitely drove some points home there. Even at a loss for words, you definitely drove some points home, Bill. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Deb? Deb, you have something you want to?
Yeah, I really appreciate this particular paragraph, because I have recently been asking that question. What is God's will? What is divine will? Because I don't know. I really don't know. Like the paragraph says, you do not know what it is, but the Holy Spirit remembers it for you. I wonder if we have to get to some space, maybe, of awareness where we begin to wonder, what is God's will? And then this is comforting to know that when we do ask, then He will tell us what God's will is for us. So this, I think of the prayer, "Our Father in heaven," the way I learned it, "Let your name be sanctified, let your will be done." I never knew what specifically is God's will, but now I know that I can ask. And in asking, then it kind of frees you to, I guess, step fully in that space and live from that, whatever it is. So I'm gonna ask. I'm curious to know.
All right. So
I would like to say something.
Yes.
So I feel, as individuals, we, there is this belief that universe got my back, and I believe in that. But I also believe that at times we have to take one for the team, and that kind of cracked me up a lot, because I'm just going to tell a very quick story. For the first 4 days when we were at the Marine base, I could not get food. Like I had for 4 days, I had only one meal. It was becoming very comical. And so finally, the staff there, who were also all medical staff, but they were take care of, whatever need we had, they told me, "We're going to save you your meal." I was like, okay. So we went with my mom. My mom decided to have gluten-free, and I said, I'm going to just get a vegetarian. So we went down and we got our food, and we walked back. And my mom took the food to her place. She always would kidnap the food, so that way I would go to her place and hang out with her. So she took the food, and I went to my side, and I washed my hands, went to the bathroom. And by the time I got to her, maybe it was like 5-7 minutes. By the time I got there, she had finished eating her meal, and she had set the table for me. in whatever fashion. And, because we didn't have much to set the table with, but she still created space for me. I sat down to eat and I looked at my food, and this is like my meal after for so long. I'm looking at my food and my food said GF.
God's food.
Well, or gluten-free. So,
I like God's food.
so my mom ate my food, and her food was a piece of chicken. So I'm sitting there and I'm just looking at GF, God's food or gluten-free, and I'm cracking up. And I asked my mom, and my mom is finishing the last bites. I said, Mom, how was your food? And she's like, oh, it was good. It was like a piece of tofu with some mushroom. And she was explaining to me what the meal was. And then suddenly she goes, oh my God. So she like realized what she has done. And she was so furious. And she was like, so she got up, she put her mask on, she ran out to go back to the office, to tell them that, we need, and I was like, there is no way we can get more meal, because everything was so, and I was sitting there and I was like, what is my lesson? What is my lesson that, what is God's will? What is it am I supposed to learn about this? And I was laughing about it because it was getting very comical that I cannot get a dish while I'm there. And it came to me that this is just for my mom to pay more attention to what she does. Because my mom is one of those people, she's the doer. She's like, let's do this, let's do that. And so when my mom came back, I talked to her and I said, Mom, I think this is what it is. And you may not take that time to do it, but because I'm your kid, and now the consequence of that is what's happening to me, perhaps you will listen more, or you would take your time more, and you slow down in your actions, and you kind of pay attention to what's your next thing. And to me was at that time, it's in a comical way, but it was for me to take one for her to sort out something for herself as far as slowing down and not to rush into things. So sometimes God wills is not necessarily just something that it would be directly for us. It could be that it would serve others.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mose. I mean, we really have some wonderful insights from Mose, Debbie, from Tesca, from Bill. So, does anybody else have any? And you see how when we're all Sandra, you have something? We're listening to you.
You need to unmute.
You have to unmute.
Good. So the word coercive jumped out at me because, and it does say appears to be coercive, but it reminded me of times in my life when I have jokingly said God had to hit me with a 2x4 in order for me to see or do or understand whatever it was. And that's the only comment that I've made. I've given many examples of what my mother used to call hard-headedness, but that's what it made me think, that the Holy Spirit, had my 2x4 ready to hit me in the head and so I don't mean this to be a violent discussion of this, but kind of that push, first God whispers and then speaks a little louder, and then, it escalates for me to a 2x4, and before I have to go, oh, yeah, I heard you before, but I didn't think that was really you, that kind of thing. So that's the word that jumps out to me, that if we listen, be still and listen, perhaps the coerciveness doesn't have to happen.
I
Absolutely.
do understand this issue. I understand cosmic 2x4s. I've had some, and there's a step that you miss before the 2x4. There's the tap on the shoulder.
All right. Yeah.
There's the tap on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Then you get the 2x4.
Yeah. The
Mhm.
tap on the shoulders when I itch, when I brush it off. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
What is
Yes.
that?
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
And I've experienced 2x4s because I wanted to be right, and I wanted someone else to be wrong.
Sure.
And I'd get the tap on the shoulder. I'd get to that third phase, the tap on the shoulder, and I would kind of know, that the direction I was heading in, but I wanted so badly to be right that I went ahead and just let myself get the cosmic 2x4.
Thank you. Oh, excuse me.
And I can, and I'm so grateful to get all these different interpretations, because I can see, it kind of gives me a more universal way. That's why I love these Course in Miracles meetings. It gives you a more universal way of interpreting the same paragraph, because people are sharing from their point of view, which it kind of enhances everyone's point of view, because we can see things more globally at that point. Just reading the Course in Miracles by myself, then I just see things from Stephen's perspective. It's not more of a universal or global perspective, but sharing with all of you, then it becomes more global. Kind of as far as like I've been in all these different areas, like for example, like Tesla, as far as basically saying I don't know anything. I mean, that's lesson. I don't know the meaning of anything. That's lesson number 1 in Course in Miracles. I don't know the meaning of anything. And as far as just basically relinquishing, just relinquishing all of that, all that I think I know, in an effort to, in relinquishing the intellectual mind, which thinks it knows. It thinks it knows, and it doesn't want to relinquish what it thinks it knows. And in truth, it doesn't know anything. But don't tell intellectual mind that. And when we're coming from intellectual mind, we don't want to hear that. When we're coming from intellectual mind, then we see God as an outside God. When we're coming from intellectual mind, then we have agendas and what we want and things like that. And so we're less loving and less open to being accepting for how someone really is. When we're coming from intellectual mind, then we have little judgments and things like that. We're making little judgments of how things should be, and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm so grateful for hearing, for getting this universal picture, and thank you, Bill. As far as for giving me an understanding as far as inclusion, as opposed to just being just a you. As far as thinking things as far as like this is me and stuff like that, and thinking from a more inclusive aspect. So yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? On paragraph 8, any more on paragraph 8, or are we ready to move on? Have we chewed enough on this paragraph?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Hi everyone, and this is Eva, and I just
Hi,
wanted
Eva.
to add one thing. Hi. I like the number 3 on this paragraph, which says, God's will is that you are his son. So that, what that tells me is, if I realize or recognize that I am my father's child, then everything else, will fall in place, because that's God's will.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have a little something that just came to me. I used to always, we hear God's will so often, and I used to drive myself crazy trying to figure out what God's will is, and because God knows I wanted to do it, or whatever, but what is it? And that lesson 101 in the workbook where it says God's will for me is perfect happiness. That like kind of put an end to like
Yes.
that's all God wants for me is that perfect happiness. And in my own experience, to let go of drive myself crazy, like what God's will is. It's almost like if I do something that's not God's will, something bad might happen. When that was like old kind of religious conditioning or whatever. And just to be completely willing to whatever it is, just kind of like live in like a surrendered state and hear the guidance that we're given on a daily basis. As in like lesson 49 says, God's voice speaks to me all through the day, and we're promised that's taking place here and now all the time. If we can just, and it becomes our actual experience when we actually accept it and believe it. It talks a lot in the course about our belief about this stuff, and Helen Schuckman, I know I've read, in her stories, where, she was talking to Jesus and said, why is this course so difficult, and everything. And he told her, I'm going by memory, basically, that it's not that difficult. It's just, you won't believe it, and so it just, it's, and as far as the perfect happiness goes, that's all God ever wanted forever, but as the course teaches in other places, I thought the happiness could come to me through something materially happening within the world, when I think, when my experience, what I've had is that, the only thing that'll satisfy me, the Son of God, is God itself, and just to have the experience and to just really wake up and to know, experience who I am. And that's it. That's perfect happiness, and we get so distracted. And I know myself, I have, within things of the world, trying to achieve that happiness through the acquirement of something material. And I promise that's the last time I'm going to intrude on your great group.
Bill, intrude away, brother. Intrude away. You are no intrusion. There's no intrusion. And you and I are in complete agreement. The pathway to peace is through relinquishment. That's something that intellectual mind doesn't want to hear anything about. Intellectual mind wants to be in control. It has its own idea of what's right and things like that. And anybody that doesn't fall within its idea of what's right, it falls on the wrong. And so if it's wrong, then it's being judged and things like that. But when you relinquish all of that, relinquish those agendas, relinquish what you think and relinquish all those expectations, then you begin to open yourself up to a greater intelligence, which is spiritual mind, which lives in you, which is your right mind. And then you begin to see that it's not an outside God at that point, that God actually lives within you. And then it doesn't seem coercive at that point. I believe someone mentioned coercive, or it says that in the paragraph. It doesn't seem coercive at that point because God is speaking within you. It's God speaking as you and through you. And so it's not coercive at that point because now you're feeling it, because you're feeling intellectual God. But you can't serve two masters. You can't serve intellectual mind and spiritual mind at the same time. So that the two are mutually exclusive thoughts, two mutually exclusive experiences. And the only way to experience spiritual mind is to give up intellectual mind completely and totally, and to give up and surrender, like the word you use, surrender, any expectations or agendas or, anything that you think that things should be or how they should go and stuff like that, and just allow things to actually be as they are. So thank you. Thank you.
And another key to this is giving up being right. Because, it's like, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And that is God's will for us, that we be happy. However, being right does not lead us to that happiness, because the key is to surrender to the guidance, the support, and the direction of God. And the Course gives such a wonderful way of doing that when we really and truly want to be happy, and we really and truly want to follow God's will in order to find that real happiness. That key to everything is, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? I'm willing to do your will. Just tell me in a way that I will understand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this is really good tonight. Thank you, Mother.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
I put this in the chat. Bill, would you please repeat which lesson is the one that you said God's will is for me to know perfect happiness?
101.
101. Thank you for that share.
You're welcome.
Do we want to discuss paragraph 8 anymore? Anybody have anything extra? This is pretty good. All right, who's next? Bill, would you mind reading paragraph 9, please?
Certainly. The projection of the ego makes it appear as if God's will is outside yourself and therefore not yours. In this interpretation, it seems possible for God's will and yours to conflict. God then may seem to demand of you what you do not want to give, and thus deprive you of what you want. Would God, who wants only your will, be capable of this? Your will is his life, which he has given to you. Even in time, you cannot live apart from him. Sleep is not death. What he created can sleep, but cannot die. Immortality is his will for his son, and his son's will for himself. God's son cannot will death for himself, because his Father is life and his Son is like him. Creation is your will because it is his.
Okay, so Bill, what comes to you from reading that? Some of that stuff you touched on, but hey, this is it. Go ahead and tell us what you think.
Well, what jumped out at me is like this. A lot of Course teachers, and we've all heard it, says the Course says the same thing over and over again. It says the same thing a million different ways. And I feel like right here it hits it. It says, even in time, which means right here and now, where we believe we're kind of limited, where the basic belief is that that there's a beginning and end to our life or whatever. And it touches about here. It says, even in time, you cannot live apart from him. And that kind of dovetails in a little bit about what I was saying earlier when it's talking about you not knowing him. And the Course kind of talks about two different yous, like the who we really are in truth, and then the self that we kind of think we are, that this self that thinks it needs to find God someday, when we're really a part of God all along. We always have been, never can not be. And I just love what, that's right here and right now. And I had a powerful experience a few years ago when, like, all these words and everything that we learn here, I experienced, it was just a change of experiencing, knowing myself as my real self. It was something that I've tried to describe, and I'm not going to try it again because it's impossible, but something really happened. And like what it said, what he created can sleep, but it cannot die. Like, we can never be apart from God. That's impossible. There's no place where God is not. However, we can imagine, our minds are that powerful. We can imagine we are separate and that there's something besides God. And, the Course uses the word sleeping for that. It's a good metaphor. But yeah, that's what I just like about this, that, like, right now, I like to tell anybody, like, even sometimes, in Course or whatever, in spiritual conversation, that you're never going to get any closer to God than you are right now, and you always have been. All you're trying to do is fix your mind to realize what's always been and always will be anyway. That's all I have. Thanks.
Very profound. Yeah. Very profound.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other interpretations?
So I just would like to add that this is kind of really, for me, God's will. Just the realization of that, of who we are. But this is like when Bill was saying that, the Course in Miracles say the same thing, because it's like an ongoing process of layers and layers to really realize who we are. That's what it came to me when I was listening to Bill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yes, identification is a huge factor, as Bill, is saying. Who do you identify as? Do you identify as the personality? Well, yes, then God is an outside God at that point. And you see a separation between you and God. But if you begin to identify as God, and then you will have a completely different experience of God. And it won't feel like a coercive God. It won't seem like an outside God. The only challenge with that is the devaluation of mankind. It's like we devalue ourselves, and, with the whole sin and iniquity and things like that has been embedded, kind of ingrained into collective consciousness, which has created a dissonance between what we really are and what we think we are. So, so thank you again for bringing that up, Bill. Anybody else? Everybody speaking?
I have.
I actually,
Bill?
Oh, I was just that first sentence, the projection of the ego makes it appear as if God's will is outside of yourself and therefore not yours. This whole human experience is extremely complicated. And it really doesn't need to be so. And I'm going to explain to you why. I spend a lot of time in nature, especially more so now since I can't spend time with people. I spend more time with trees. And trees are just being trees. They're not being anything else but a tree. And the animals are just being animals. And here we are, and we have all this complexity of, like, this projection of ego. I mean, it's just, why? What is it that makes us consciousness-wise have this struggle against just being? Because to me, the trees are a representation of living in God's will, just by being what it is. And it's not trying to be a rock. The tree's not trying to be a squirrel. It's a tree. But we are always fighting and trying to figure out what we are and where we fit and where we factor in, when we really just have to, I can't speak for everybody, but just be. If I just be, then maybe everything falls into place. Does that make sense?
It's perfect sense. Perfect sense.
I just want to be a tree. It's just easier to be a tree. But then that's not being me. So then I'm back at that complexity all over again, because I'm not being. Okay, ignore me.
No. Thank you.
What kind of tree there?
I think Sandy has a
A
question.
mango
Sandy?
tree.
Mango tree, okay. Sandy, you have a question?
A couple of things came up for me. One is in reference to what Bill said, if God is far away, who moved? So that's one thing. But also this time that we're going through, and I've seen this more than once on Facebook, God has sent us to our rooms to think about who we are. It says what we did, but who we are, how close we are to God. We are I believe, to use this time to reevaluate how we are in this world, to be trees if we are trees. Now, I don't want to minimize the suffering that some people are going through, or the people that have passed on, and yet I know that's their path. But nonetheless, if we look at this worldwide event, we have had terrible things, diseases in the world before. And I wasn't alive in 1918 during the Spanish flu. But this is a message for us. This is an awakening for the human race. It's perhaps a message for us to really know who we are, the Son of God, the sons and the daughters of God. And so it has everybody's attention, even the people, no names will I mention, who don't want to attend to it, who have been fighting against attending to it. They have no choice but to pay attention. This is the great equalizer. It knows no race. It knows no ethnic background. It doesn't know a thing about money. You can't buy it away. You can't. So it's a big, we've missed, Reverend Sheila, we've missed the whispers and the taps on the shoulders. This is the big 2x4. You are my child. You are a child of God. You are all children of God. Pay attention. Love one another. Forgive one another. And when a month isn't enough, we get to have another month to think about it a little bit more. And I'm not making fun of it. I'm laughing of the absurdity that this has to happen for us to wake. I can't say what Madonna said, wake up, but use your imagination. This is
Totally
big.
agree.
And it speaks to the projection of the ego, the recognition of who we really are. And not only who I am and the trees are, but who you are and who everyone is. So I'll get off my soap opera, but I truly believe that this is speaking exactly to the Course in Miracles and specifically to this particular paragraph. Thank you.
Sandra, you can stay on that soapbox. As a matter of fact, we can all go home now. You know, it's like everybody's just home now. All right. So we are going.
Can I interrupt really quick?
Oh, sure.
Hi, Christy.
That's me, Sheila.
Hi. This is Christy, everybody.
Hi. I've really been enjoying everyone's shares, but it would be really helpful for me if you could let me know where in the book you guys are reading from.
Absolutely. We are
Page 196.
we're on page 196 if you have the actual book, but it's chapter 11, part 1 or 2, depending on the version, the Gifts of Fatherhood. Chapter 11, God of the Ego, part 1 or 2, depending on the version.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you.
No problem. And we're on paragraph, we were just discussing paragraph 9.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, we will. So we are going to return. We're going to take a restroom break. So we'll be back in about 8 minutes. Get some water, to get some snacks or whatever, and we'll be back. All right.
Oh, well, I was going to introduce myself. If somebody's not going to the restroom, hi, I'm Chris Smedley. I'm a friend at Tesca's, but more of Sherry Joyce. I don't know. She's the one who invited me. And I'm in San Diego, and I've been just listening.
Good to meet you.
Yeah. Do y'all know Sherry? Sherry Joyce? No?
No.
Oh, well. I thought she would be here, but she's not.
Well, welcome from Houston.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm Sandy. Welcome. Break time. How long does the group last, usually? Can anybody hear me? Stephen?
I think another 30 minutes, maybe.
Thank you.
Hours.
No one else could hear me. Huh?
No,
Thank
yes.
you, Ziba. Thank you.
We were just eating.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Stephen, Sandra has a question.
Oh, I think you answered it. I was just wondering the typical amount of time that you, or, you know, the number of hours that you spend. What time do you spend?
12 session.
Say it again?
Actually,
What's that?
Just turn it off. Turn off the sound.
Okay.
You turn it on.
Wow.
Your sound is down.
It's good now.
okay. All right, so I'm so sorry about the feedback. There's Claudia is on her computer and she's like helping me moderate as far as letting me know, because I can't see everybody, but she can. So when her computer is playing sound, then we get like a little feedback and stuff. So we're, this is our first time doing this, so bear with us. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Yes.
All right, so we are from 7 to 9. We usually start our meditation about 7:05 or so, and Central Standard Time. And so we end around 9 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Sometimes we end up a little bit before because we'll do our closing prayer. So about 9:50 or so we'll start wrapping up. Just depends on where we are. 9:50, 9:55 we'll start wrapping up as far as our closing prayer. So, but from 7 to 9 is typically, and then we take a 10-minute break, so people can stretch their leg, water, things like that. So, and this is, by the way, this is our third anniversary, second anniversary. I'm sorry, our second anniversary. Yeah,
It was last month.
our second anniversary. Yeah. Well, we didn't really get a chance to celebrate it, but this is our second anniversary. So we've been going on for 2 years now.
And you're in North Houston?
Yes.
Where in North Houston are you?
Are you familiar with North Houston?
I live in North Houston.
And we're in Ponderosa Forest.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not that far north. I'm kind of near north, but okay, good. Thank you.
How many rotations have you gone with through the book in the 2 years?
We are in the same one.
We're still in the same rotation. Yeah, we're actually we started at the beginning, and so now we're in chapter 10. So it's like yeah. So all right. So where do we leave off at?
Paragraph 10.
Well, we're on paragraph 9 still. So did anybody have any thing else that, because I'm just asking this because paragraph 9 is a pretty big paragraph. Did anybody have anything else that spoke to them to share for paragraph 9? If so, please share. We would love to hear you or hear your insights. No? All right. So, Dad, would you mind reading paragraph 10, please?
Okay. You cannot be happy unless you do what you will truly, and you cannot change this because it is immutable. It is immutable by God's will and yours, for otherwise his will would not be extended. You are afraid to know God's will because you believe it is not yours. This belief is your whole sickness and your whole fear. Every symptom of sickness and fear arises here because this is the belief that makes you want not to know. Believing this, you hide in darkness, denying that the light is in you.
So what comes to you, Dad?
Well, God's will and my own should be in sync. And if you're afraid of God's will, it's because you believe it is not yours.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. Good point. So what do you all think about paragraph 10? Any comments, interpretations, questions?
Hi, it's Rebecca. It strikes me as another version of the message that all suffering originates from the original separation. That to the extent to which we believe we are separate from our divine source, we are sleeping. We're not dead. We can emerge at any time, but we are separated in our experience, and that causes us the illusion of sickness.
Yep, absolutely. I like that. Thank you, Rebecca.
I have a quick comment. I have a friend that we used to study the course together, and she used to like highlight certain, like she called them like bullet points that really like a few sentences throughout the course that if you just remember this, man, you're going to like know the whole thing. And I feel like one of the, I don't know if it was one of hers, but this whole thing talks about the belief that God's will is not yours. And then it says, this belief is your whole sickness and your whole fear. Every symptom of sickness and fear arises here because this is the belief that makes you want not to know. So if you just take that, it's like that covers everything. You know, it says every symptom of sickness and fear arises here from that one belief that God's will is not ours and we're afraid to know it. And most of those beliefs I have found, they lay in our unconscious mind. Like we're not even aware that we have that belief. However, we experience these symptoms of fear and sickness in the mind or whatever, and that kind of helps us to go back to that belief is there, and that's helped me so much to realize a lot of these beliefs it talks about, I would automatically say, I don't believe that, but I didn't know. But I came to discover that most of this is talking about the beliefs we have that we don't even know we have. They've been there so long. They're what is called the unconscious. We're not aware of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Did anyone else see the message from Reverend Sheila about being muted?
I got it. She is on mute.
She's on mute?
Yeah, now you're on mute, Sheila.
And I haven't touched anything.
Okay. I haven't muted you. So okay. I'm sorry. So you're not muted now.
Oh, well, I was until someone said something. So yeah, I've been trying to talk for a long time, but I couldn't. I just finally just gave up.
You can, Sheila, when you need something. And
yeah, just physically raise your hand, man, and so.
We can see what's going on.
Because I mean, I'm not looking at the message screen as far as but I'm glad somebody was. So thank you, Rebecca, and yeah, just raise your hand, man. But
Father Intervention was saying you need.
So we'll find ways to
Well, that's why I texted. That's why I did that, because I had been trying to talk, and I figure like that might have helped, but I guess it didn't. It's okay. I probably shouldn't have said anything anyway.
I'm listening. Go ahead, Mom. We're listening.
No, I mean, I didn't have anything to say right now. What I'm saying is I've tried several times to join in, but I was just mute. So I was just sent you a text to let you know. Yeah.
All
and
right.
That's how Claudia found out.
All right. Thank you.
But I missed the last paragraph that was read because I had to go into another room and text you. So.
Okay.
Well, I remember when I didn't identify with God being within me. And I'm the type of person, I've always been kind of rebellious growing up. And so I never liked to be told what to do, and I didn't care if it was spirit or anything like that, and if I didn't identify God being within me, you don't tell me what to do. And so, because I identified God as being an outside God, I was rebellious. I'm going to be the first to admit it. And so it wasn't until I began to realize, and that realization really came from studying A Course in Miracles, that God is my right mind. It's the part of me that is the right mind. And so why am I being rebellious with myself? Why am I, basically having a split mind? And that's the source of all sickness is, sick mind, and not identifying with the God that is within you, which is that right-mindedness. So then it all kind of slowly began to shift, and I began to understand. And so now it's like, well, why would I be rebellious with myself? Okay, so it makes sense now. But when I had that identification of God being outside of me, yes, I was very rebellious. So, to the point when, and I had my own agendas, things that I wanted to happen. This is what I want. Now I don't know what you want, God, but this is what I want. So, that's how I looked at things. And there were times that, I guess, the way I look at it now, I guess I was, having arguments with myself. I was having arguments with myself. I'm telling myself, you don't control me, and just getting upset, with my right mind. So yeah, I had those kinds of spats, those kinds of tirades and tantrums and things like that, because this is what I want. Now, I don't want to know what God wants, because it might not be what I want, and if it's not what I want, then I don't even want to know what God wants, because I identified God as not being a part of me. So it was like a separate type of will.
What's your left mind with the right mind?
Yeah, my left mind and my right mind were battling it out. Yeah, we're battling it out. Yeah. So, and that's just my share as far as, what I get, from this paragraph, from the previous paragraph. That was how I looked at things. Anybody else?
Stephen, no one else in this room or anywhere felt the same way that you just, I'm just kidding. We all have this battle. I have this battle. I can't speak for everyone. I have this battle almost daily, maybe several times a day.
Okay,
I believe if we didn't still have this battle, we would ascend.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's an indication that we are still evolving. We are still growing into our God self. And there must be something more for us to grow into, to go through, so that we can grow into that total acceptance of and beingness as God. Because I think we would just leave. That's my belief.
Do you think that happens in one lifetime, or does it take reincarnation to come? You learn one thing and then you leave, and then what's your take on that?
Well, I can say for sure it didn't happen for me in one lifetime, because God was very creative in this life, and I knew that I had something very significant and powerful to do in this lifetime, because I was shown twice my past lives, two of my past lives, just shown it. I wasn't looking for it. Wasn't even sure the first time that I believed in past lives, but I was shown. And this isn't anything I created in my mind. I was taken on a journey. So I think it can take more than one. I truly believe that you can get it done in one. It depends on how quickly we come into that perfect alignment, which means that
we are in God and God is in us, and the awareness of that is present and prevalent in our lives. That's just my belief.
Thank you, Mother.
You're welcome.
I like the present and prevalent.
Thank you.
I like that. I have a tendency to tune in and then lose my station.
And you know what? That's okay. Because no one except you in your soul, in your soul alignment, when you are acting as it from and understanding your soul, no one knows what each of our paths is except our soul. And part of this work that we are doing in this lifetime is truly meant to align us with our soul, or with our soul purpose. And that's the work we do in removing the ego. The more we are able to step away from the ego and step fully into that I am self, then that is when you see your soul. And you can understand exactly why you're here in this life and what it is that you are here to do and what you need to do to get out of here. So, yeah. But we're all, remember, you know, we're spiritual beings having a spiritual experience on a human plane in a body. We are not human beings. We come in a human form, but we are not human beings. We are spiritual beings, and we are having a spiritual experience. All our experiences, whether we like them or not, are spiritual. And we're on a human plane having these experiences in this physical body. Am I making sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
And even if it doesn't seem spiritual, even if you're like, even if you're a person that is, that you basically rationalize everything, everything, any type of thing you just rationalize it, like, that's the wind, or that's this, or that's, I'm just really lucky, or whatever. Even if you don't live a spiritual life, it's still a completely spiritual experience nonetheless. It doesn't matter.
Amen to that. That is the truth. Yes. But it's so much easier when we do recognize that it's a spiritual life.
Any more takers on 10? Anyone?
I have an awareness. I think it's the third sentence, a 3. And sometimes I find that with the Course in Miracles, I have to read it backwards for it to really make sense. That's how I able to understand it. But it says, because you believe it's not yours, you are afraid to know God's will. And then that is the belief that creates sickness and the whole fear. And I just had the awareness of this is what I was struggling with, leaving my foundational belief system and expanding into where I am today. That the fear and the sickness and the depression was from not understanding that I needed to leave or to move, not move away from it, but to kind of step out of it and learn more. Because once I did that, then I felt happy. I felt better. I felt normal. But while I was in that space and trying to squeeze my square peg nest into that round hole that they said I have to fit in, I was miserable. So this is like a big aha moment for me. It's like, that's what that was. God's will was for me to graduate into the next state of consciousness or awareness or learning. But at the time, I didn't think that's what that was. I thought there's something wrong with me. You know, why do I want to learn outside of this conclave of information? I really thought that there was something wrong with me. But now I look back and that's part of the process.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. And I'm sure many of us can look, you know, behind us as far as our pathways leading up to where we are and see the perfection. I'm sure many of us can see times when we were in the past, when we were afraid of something, where, you know, things were unsure and things worked out beautifully. As a matter of fact, they worked out better than we could have possibly, you know, even made up ourselves, as far as even like, you know, wait a minute, really? It really happened that way? You know, so at least that's how it's been for me. You know, it's like I could never have possibly even constructed this myself better than Spirit actually did it itself. So, you know, as far as when you look at your pathway leading up to where you are now. So like, and so from that's kind of where I get my faith in this whole coronavirus thing, because, you know, I kind of look at, you know, my pathway leading up to where I am now. God's always been there, even when it didn't seem like God was there. Even when it didn't seem like, you know, it seemed like it was dark and scary and stuff like that. And you know something? It turned out okay. You know, and so I can just look at any situation in the present based on that, you know, long pathway that I'm not going to forget, you know, from as far as feeling a gratitude from it, as far as not forgetting. And I can look at the situation now and I'm just like, you know something, I understand this is how this looks, but it's looked like this before.
Mm-hmm.
It has looked like this many times before. I can just start just writing down a whole checklist of times when it's looked like this before and it turned out okay.
Yep.
I'm unemployed again. I've been here before. What did I do the last time? Oh, surrender and just do what I'm supposed to do. And just, it shows up every single time.
Amen, sister.
Every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had experience with unemployment, but looking at the macrocosm of this pandemic that we're going through. I remember, I think it was the beginning of March that Reverend Michael talked about evolution. And I'm probably not going to get it exactly right, but he talked about, you know, that in the process, it's slow, it's a step at a time. But sometimes there's a big event that thrusts us forward into a change that is monumental. And I believe, if you haven't heard my soapbox, that that's what's happening now.
Yes.
That you're being thrust into a change that is for the better. There are hints of it. The air in Los Angeles and the water, the river, or whatever it is in Venice. And I was listening to the birds sing. I can't remember when I've heard birds sing. So these little hints are happening. And so we must say, thank you, God, which is thank you, us, for opening to this, this rocket ship that we're on. We're on a rocket ship because all of us are holding on for dear life, not knowing where we're going, the uncertainty of it all. But this is God's work. This is God's work. And it's, you know, most changes in my life have been, you know, step by step by step by step. My goodness, this is this is thrusting us into something that I cannot help but believe is going to be better, if not best, for all of us, all over the world. I truly believe that.
And I believe it too. And Claudia does too, and my mother does too, and we've had Eva does too, and I can see all kinds.
I believe it.
Yeah, you can feel it. You can feel the promise that's behind it.
Yeah, many things had to be broken down so that we could break through. And so now we're moved off into little separate pods to give us time to reflect and to return to our right mind, so that when we are drawn together again, when the quote unquote air is clear and we are brought back together in one place again, we will have a deeper understanding, we will have a greater appreciation, and we'll have a more open willingness to move forward in alignment with our creative power, rather than from our ego. And we were in major ego mode. We had reached a massive ego mode, and that had to be broken down before we could have the breakthrough. And with where we are now, you can't be in your ego, because everybody needs everybody else.
Yep.
I'm done.
No, please. I'm glad you got on your soapbox too. So thank you.
So I was going to add something real quick, if you don't mind. I love a couple of parts of the course that just kind of blow everything out of the water when it comes to the thought system that the world kind of operates on, and that we all have operated on at some point before this. And it's Course in Miracles says all things work together for good. There are no exceptions except in the ego's judgment.
Ooh, yes.
When I look at, I would never share this except at a Course in Miracles study group, but this whole coronavirus thing is good. I would never, I have to believe what Course in Miracles is telling me, that all things work together for good, because there's nothing but God. There is no other power or presence in the whole universe. And I was going to read something real quick from the Manual for Teachers. It's under the Development of Trust. And it kind of sums it up where, they're like points that, either that's true or it's not. Do all things work together for good?
Yes.
There's no exceptions.
No exceptions.
And it says here that, oh goodness, of course I'm not going to find it right now. I had it right. Oh, here it goes.
Where are you reading from? Excuse me, Bill, where are you reading from?
From the Development of Trust in the Manual for Teachers on page 10 of the manual, paragraph 4. But it's just a sentence in there that it's one of those ones I kind of memorized, but it says, it takes great learning to understand that all things, events, encounters, and circumstances are helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in I think lesson 135, there's that pretty famous paragraph 18 that says, what could you not accept if you but knew that all things, all events, past, present, and to come, were gently planned by one, capital O, whose only purpose is your good? What could you not accept if you but knew that?
Yeah.
And if you take those couple things, you could almost put the rest of the book away and milk that truth for the rest of your life and let that sink in. Because as much as I know those, there's this habitual way I've always kind of perceived life. It's still there, kind of that conditioning. But if I soak that rag into clean water long enough, it's getting cleaner though. So thanks.
And that's exactly what I was saying when I said we're spiritual beings having a spiritual experience. on a human plane in a body. Exactly. That's exactly what you just verified.
I would like to share a couple things that came to me from after my meditations from the beginning of this. Is one of the things is that yeah, we're all going inside and going back to basics. And basically for us is to come to the core unit. There were a lot of families who were kind of running away from each other, and now they just need to take care, deal with whatever it is and work things out. The other thing was that I think this is an answer to a communal prayers. Every time I personally would talk to people, they never had time for nothing. Meditation, they didn't have time. Taking care of themselves, they didn't have time. Eating well, they didn't have time. Exercising, they didn't have time. Spending time with family, they didn't have time. And this is an answer to that communal. It's like everybody, it was just like, you're important. The more time you don't have, the more important you are. And this to me seems like the answer to that communal prayer, that, oh, you didn't have time. There you go. Now you have time. And there's no more excuse to deal with, the basics of the life. And last thing I want to share was during one of my meditations on the boat, I actually, spoke with, I asked Corona, I said, what's your deal? What's up? What are you trying to do here? And again, that's like what Bill was saying. This is something that I don't go around share with people. Oh, I had a chat with coronavirus. But what it told me is that I cannot live by myself. I need a host. And I'm not here to kill you. I'm here asking you to live in a clean air, eat clean food, have clean thoughts, so you are strong enough so we can both coexist together. And basically his or her request was, take care of yourself so we can all coexist. Like there's billions of viruses within each of our bodies and we're all coexisting, no big deal. And Corona is just saying, step it up, take good care of yourself, keep the air clean, keep your body clean, keep your mind clean, so we could coexist, because it cannot exist by itself. So as you all were sharing here, there's all like, these are all lessons for us, and for us to kind of step it up. One last thing is that as I was sitting outside the other day, taking one of my phone calls, I felt like I'm in National Geographic. My home is at the bottom of like a town called, at the end of our town, we had a hill name. So we're at the bottom of a hill. And as I was sitting there, there was all these creatures. There were like quails running in front of me. There was like deers across the street. There was like all these birds, and we have the fountain on. All these birds are swimming in the fountain. And it totally felt like I'm sitting in National Geographic, and all the animals are kind of taking back what was theirs to begin with. So that felt also very good, that I felt part of nature.
Yes.
Wow.
They are feels different too.
Thank you, Mose. I mean, I hadn't, and I do a lot of contemplation and deep thought and stuff like that, and hadn't, thought in terms of communicating with coronavirus, and that was a wonderful share. Thank you, Mose. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say yes, just to piggyback on that. The New York subway was cleaned every 72 hours. I'm from the Northeast, and I'm from Philadelphia, and I haven't heard that the Philadelphia subway was, but we're living on a cleaner plane than we have in X number of years. I don't know that they've ever cleaned the New York subway in 100 years, let alone every 3 days. So you know, that's, to me, that's big. That, of course, it's based on fear, but I do believe we are learning something. Oh, maybe if we clean up, we won't get so many diseases. That's precious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look what happened in Italy, in Vienna, where the whole city is built on canals, on waters. For the first time, the water is so clear because those boats churn up and they make pollution and everything from the fuel they use. For the first time, you can see the fish swimming at the bottom of those canals, of those pathways, and the dolphins have returned to the canals for the first time in I don't know how many years.
Yeah. And my father was just telling me, I think he was telling me today, that gas prices are at the lowest price that they've been, he said, and how long you said?
20 some odd years.
20 some odd years. He found a place that was like $1.59 or something like that. Yes. Yeah, so, you know.
Air pollution is clean.
Air pollution clean.
What I was telling you, so I was telling Steven, you know, so it should be like once a year, like we have a month to work from home, you know, just because it has benefits.
Yeah. So let's go on to chapter.
That's a great idea, Claudia.
Let's go on to paragraph 11 and finish this up. And so
11 is, let's see, Rebecca?
Rebecca, Rebecca, you want to take us home?
What is the next paragraph?
Sure. I just had to unmute myself. You are asked to trust the Holy Spirit only because he speaks for you. He is the voice for God, but never forget that God did not will to be alone. He shares his will with you. He does not thrust it upon you. Always remember that what he gives, he keeps, so nothing he gives can contradict him. You who share his life must share it to know it, for sharing is knowing. Blessed are you who learn that to hear the will of your Father is to know your own. For it is your will to be like him, whose will is that it is so. God's will is that his Son be one and united with him in his oneness. That is why healing is the beginning of the recognition that your will is his.
Yes, I love that paragraph.
Just bring it home. So let's talk about that, you know? He pretty much brings it home. Any interpretations, any questions, any comments?
I have a question. Where it says, where was it? I'm sorry, just give me a second. Okay, so his life must share it to know it. For sharing is knowing. Well, sharing, so far, reading this book, I used to think that, when you give, you receive. You know, they're the same thing, giving and receiving. And now this is a new idea which brings knowledge to sharing, which is, to me, is the same as giving. Do I understand it correctly, everyone?
Yes, you do understand correctly. Sharing, in other words, in order to keep it, you share it. In order to learn it, you teach it. You know, as far if you don't share it, then you won't know it. Yes. You know, if you don't share love, you won't know love. You know, so yes, everything, absolutely.
So Thank you. And so how is sharing knowing? Can you explain or expand on that?
Yes. Well, before I expand on it, is there anyone else that would like to, explain take that one for Zeba and explain that for Zeba, or I will.
Well, when you're sharing, you're one with. Sharing, that's one with God. When you're giving out from yourself, that's not sharing. So when you're sharing, you're one with God, and that's the foundation of it. That's when you know, when you're sharing with God, then you know everything that God knows. And so that is true knowledge.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
Wow.
welcome.
Wow.
Anybody else? Come on. We're about to shut it down. Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Raise your hand.
All right, so don't pick yourself later on. Once the week is over. I knew I should have asked that question. I should have said that. Someone who wants to say something? Sandra, please, Sandra.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for having me in this group tonight. It was perfect. It was perfect. It was just what I needed. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
And that same thanks goes to Tesca and Bill and
Christy
and Mose for returning.
Darling, I know.
Our lost sheep has returned.
Yes, she came home.
And thank you so much, Rebecca, for popping in. We'll probably see you again in another month or something like that, and that's okay. Okay. And we got Debbie for 2 weeks in a row. I mean, we need to put that down on the calendar, No, I'm just teasing you guys. This is all just love. I am just teasing. So, with that in mind, I would love for the Reverend Sheila Gautreaux to finish us out with a prayer.
That's my favorite thing to do. Wrote a book about it. Want to hear it? Okay. All right. Let's go within that secret chamber where we meet and greet the Lord of our being. So closing our eyes and focusing all of our energy into our hearts. That is the secret chamber.
I have a little of yours.
And in that secret chamber, just for a moment, know that you are one with God. Know it. Don't believe it. Know it. Don't think it. Know it. Knowing is being. Knowing is the energy that aligns us with the truth, the power of all things. The oneness that cannot separate. And from that central channel in that secret, sacred place, we hold in our hearts our cities, our nations, our world, and holding in spite of appearances that all is perfect. Everything that is happening, that will happen, it is perfect. We know at the center and under the foundation of it, and the foundation of it is only God, for there is only God. And therefore, there is only good. And so we declare all of this as good. We remove our eyes from deaths and pain and suffering and the virus and being locked in. We remove our eyes from that and know this is perfect. That God's will is being done. And our will is God's will, and God's will is our will. And so right here, right now, we accept our will. We accept it. We lay out a path before us, paved with it, and we step into it, moving forward into the kingdom of heaven right here, right now, right where we are. And we name it, we claim it, we declare it to be so, for it could not be otherwise. And so it is, in the name and after the loving nature of our way shower, master teacher, elder brother, Jesus the Christ, and the Christ that lives within absolutely all of us. And so we say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is.
So it is.
And so it is.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. It has been a true pleasure, and I am so honored to, this was a very special meeting, and I'm so happy to have experienced Moshe's testimony, and I'm so happy to have experienced meeting Bill and Teska, and Sandra. I know you, but it's wonderful to have you in the group, and whenever you're ready to come back, please, you're always welcome. All of you are welcome. So, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Sending love.
Oh, Zoom hug.
Sending lots of Zoom hugs out. I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you. Thank you. Love you.
Night,
All right.
night. Sleep with angels.
Yes, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Make sure you don't have the recording there.